Yo, what's up? It's your boy Michael Faze coming to you live from the Faze Cave. And today I'm going to show you 5 rules that if mastered, you can make some really powerful hardstyle leads. So before we begin, make sure that you smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on any new content whatsoever. And if you're looking for the presets that were used in this video, you can find a link in the description. You should find all the presets that I used on this video and you can follow along. All right, so I prepared this little demo for you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. It's a bit Blade Master influenced, so here we go. Now, I love this sort of sound. It feels very euphoric, but still plucky and bouncy. I'm not really a fan of the kick, but I used it just for this example, just so we can get through it. But one of the first rules is going to be to adjust the volume so that the layers fit. The reason being is that you don't want everything to be in the front of the mix. So you want to make sure that your first main lead is going to be the center of the attention. It's going to have most of the volume. In this case, I have the Gravity lead from my Silence pack, and it sounds like this by itself. That's with 0 effects, so keep that in mind. And the second layer is the pluck from Blade Master on my same pack, and it sounds like this. Now notice that the layer sounds actually a lot lower in volume, and when you hear them together, they actually stack up pretty well. Now, I did that just because I needed something to give the Gravity sound a bit more of a pluckish feeling, a percussive feeling. So adjusting the volume for that really made room for it. So that way, when I go to EQ it, all I have to do is a simple cut. As you can see in the plugin itself, the EQ, it pretty much let the rest of the Gravity synth go in. So if I play them together with the effects, they fit so much better. All right, so for rule number 2, you basically just need to pan and detune your leads. The reason being is that when you pan things out, it's a lot easier to make stereo width for your sounds in particular, so nothing sounds too centered or too stale, and you trick the ear into thinking that it's one whole sound, but it's really not. There's a bunch of layers just stacked up and panned in different sections, so that it creates the illusion to your ear. So for this example, I ended up doing the pluck at 15% to the left and lowered the volume a little bit just so I can pretty much get the right balance between the layers. Sounds like this, all the way to the right. Now for the second layer is the fusion lead, and on the oscillator A and B, I did a bit of detuning, which made it fit the lead a bit better than the original sound itself. And that was kind of the goal, to just fit it between the Gravity lead and make it tight. So when you hear it in context together, it sounds like this. Really dope, right? So for the 4th layer, I kept it really simple. I kept the Funk is Rude lead in the center just because this is more of a body synth, and I cut out some of the highs and I put the notes 1 octave lower, so that way I can give the Gravity lead a bit more body in the mid-range. But when you hear it together with everything, it sounds like this. Now, I don't have virus, so a lot of these layering techniques really help me to achieve a sort of virus sound. So the last lead, I ended up using a detuner, which is not connected to the bus whatsoever. This one is more meant to be a super background synth, and by that I mean that I put a wider on it, I set it to 100, so it's really, really wide, and it's just adding to the background. It's not really like a center of the attention kind of lead. It's very light and just smooth enough to kind of fit and tie everything all together. When you hear it all mixed, it sounds like this. So it's a really dope combination, and I urge you guys to pan before you add a stereo tool. And also detune, so you can add a bit of whiff as well and blend in the layers a lot better. All right, so rule number 3 is pretty much process less so you can have a bigger sound on the bus. And the reason why I say that is because you don't want too many plugins on separate different layers, and it's just gonna end up being a whole mess. You're gonna have a whole bunch of phase issues, no pun intended. And yeah, just a whole bunch of problems. And in the mix, you want something to be really clean and crisp. So if I mute the bus settings and you hear everything together, you hear that there's really no issue with the sound. So for layer number 1, I kept it real simple. I just put a Pro Q and took out whatever needed some work. So in this case, if I solo it out, it sounds like this. Now notice that there were spikes in the frequencies, and that was one thing that was really bothering me. I didn't want those spikes to be way too high in volume, so I did a bit of a ducking situation here and really tried to take control of the sound a bit more. I took the rest of the low end out as well, just in case there's some low end that's not visible to me. And I took out some of the high energy just because the rest of the layers in this chain is really high on the frequency spectrum. So the second layer is the Blade Master. I pretty much added a parametric EQ. I kept it real simple. I did a duck and then the higher mids, just so the upper mids on the gravity lead could cut through the mix. And that's kind of what you want to do, especially when you add an EQ. What's the purpose? The purpose being for this is that I want the higher mids in the gravity lead to cut through more than this particular sound. So that way it layers up like this. Now notice that when I took it off, it just made the sound much thinner and it lost something special to it that made it complete. If your sounds are not doing that, then it's not worth layering. Now the third lead is the fusion lead, and I kept that one really simple as well. I just put a Pro Q and I made a dip on the body, which is the mids and the upper mids, just because I want the gravity lead to be the center of the attention. If I were to take this out and take off the wider and everything was playing together, you would hear this. See right there, that's really bad. It's fighting for space and it's just not complementing the synth. So once you add the Pro Q, it sounds like this. It makes it lighter, so that way you can mix it a lot easier. And then to tie it all together was the wider at 60%, which spread the signal, but didn't mess with the mono signal too much. So that way everything can kind of blend together. So for the Funk is Rude, I ended up just putting a regular Pro Q and making more of the upper mids a lot more dominant, and taking out some of the body just because we really don't need that much body going into the gravity lead. If I play it without the actual settings, it sounds like this. Now notice when I turned on the Pro Q, it actually blended a lot better, and that's exactly what I wanted. For the last layer, all I did was put a fruity balance and dipped the signal by 3 dB just to create more headroom for me. And then in the Pro Q, I did a similar thing except for the upper mids. I ended up doing all the way for the high energy, and that way I get more air. In this case, a little bit more digital air because I'm using a Pro Q instead of the analog plugin. And I also took out some of the body just because this is supposed to be a background synth, not really something that's dominant in the front of the mix. The last thing that I added on here was a wider at 100% just so I can get that whiff. So without the actual plugins, it sounds like this. Now you can tell immediately that it sounds cool, but it just doesn't blend with everything as good as it could be. So once you add the Pro Q and the balance, it sounds like this. It sounds like it's more in the background, so there's more room. And then once you add the wider, and there you go, you have your lead mix. Now, the last bit of processing is going to be the actual main bus. And if you haven't already watched the video on the raw style leads, then you should go check that out. I'll leave a link right up there somewhere, or there, it doesn't really matter, somewhere over there, only to save you enough time because this is pretty much the same technique. The only difference here is that I edited the Echo Boy into triplet, and I also edited the Valhalla to kind of just serve as a room, not really a gigantic reverb, if you know what I mean. And that was pretty much it. That's the only big difference. So make sure to check out that video somewhere over here or down in the description and get to it. For our fourth rule, it's really simple. In hardstyle, there's really a little bit of sidechain. So this is little to no sidechain. Just put on the volume shaper and you see that in the high mix, I have it at 10% just because you don't really need that much of a pump in hardstyle, unless you're making more like a TNT style track, which is more drive and more like For the mid, you want to do 25% for this type of lead and just adjust the band so you get the type of mix of sidechain that you want. I would suggest that the 25% is at max, and the ideal mix for this would be 10 to 15%, to be honest, because hardstyle doesn't need that much of a sidechain. It's not electro where you need a very drastic sidechain. And then the last band is pretty much no low end whatsoever because I wanted to make sure that we didn't conflict with the kick. And that is pretty much what it's all about on the sidechain. And the last and final rule, number 5, is stop gain staging. And the reason I say that is because you're clipping your sounds, you're not getting enough headroom. So when you go to process your leads and you go to add some distortion, a bit of ODT or whatever, you're gonna start to make the sound really disgusting in a bad way. I don't mean in a good way. It's gonna sound like crap and you don't want that. So make sure that you're not gain staging, that you have at least 6 dB of headroom before processing. So that way you can really make your sounds cut through the mix, but also still have its dynamic range. Because if you lose all the dynamic range, then you're really screwed and you're gonna wonder why your lead sounds like crap. Trust me on this one, stop gain staging. So hopefully some of these techniques help you out in your processing and make better hardstyle. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of this video? What were you able to take from this and apply to your tracks? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want the presets used in this video, make sure to check out the link in the description or in the comments. I'll pin my own comments so you guys can check out the preset packs. Lastly, if you like what I do here, make sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on any new content. I'm gonna be doing videos on every genre. It's not just about hardstyle, it's about electronic music as a whole. So subscribe, share this video with your friend, and let's grow this community together. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to check this out. Phase out.